I think I feel pretty comfortable.
Good. Anything I can do to distract? We're here. We made it.
We are here.
We're live.
Yeah, and we're live, and we're back again.
Hi.
Back again.
You're watching again, and we appreciate it again.
We actually do really appreciate it.
Every time I post one of these, I'm sure you deal with it when you post the audio episode about having to mark it explicit.
It is, yeah.
On YouTube, they specifically ask you, is this made for kids? And I'm always like, not for them.
But we don't want to exclude them.
Yeah.
We're actively moving towards demonetization.
Yeah, that's what this episode's all about.
It's all about making sure that we don't make any money off this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But, Pat, let me ask you, how much money do we make off of this podcast, typically?
On quarterly, or are we talking about, like, net or
We can go quarterly.
gross?
We can go. Let's just go gross.
I always go gross. 0. It is 0. It is
Exactly. It's
this,
$0.
At this current date, it is $0.
It's been $0. It continues to be $0. So frankly, like we're always worried about, like, you know, whether we can play music on the podcast.
Yeah.
We just play music on the podcast.
New intro is brought to you by Slayer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of the things that we find happens a lot, even just in your career as a podcast producer. There's a lot of people that don't want to pay you to do that work either.
Yeah. There's not a lot. It's funny because I think I've been demonetized my entire life. I've never really had monetization. Jeff.
Yeah. So to be demonetized, you're not really sure what that means.
Yeah, I'm unmonetized. How
I'm
about that?
unmonetized.
That's a better way to put it.
I like that way.
I'm unmonetized.
Okay, so welcome back to the 6 a.m. podcast, the unmonetized.
The unmonetized 6 a.m. podcast.
Yeah. I'm one of your hosts, Jeff, and my other host is Pat.
Hey, how's it going? If you want to sponsor the show, let us know.
Hey, just so everybody knows, this is a jiu-jitsu podcast.
Yes.
Where we talk about the art and science of Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, the social aspect of it as well.
Yeah, we
Jeff?
do talk about the social aspect, the social component, we'll call it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and some other combat sports as well. This really scratches my itch. I've been wanting to, like, talk more about not just jiu-jitsu but other combat sports as well.
I think so. Yeah,
and I feel like that it just kind of naturally comes up enough in this realm.
It does.
So I'm really happy for that. So
And
I appreciate
jiu-jitsu
it.
is part of the continuum of mixed martial arts. We're mixed martial arts fans, and in a lot of ways, mixed martial artists ourselves. I mean, we don't stick just with jiu-jitsu. I mean, jiu-jitsu is our primary art that we practice, but we practice a lot of different things.
Yeah. I feel like
there's
practical elements, but we know that jiu-jitsu is the glue that holds all mixed martial arts together.
Right.
We know that.
Right.
Yeah, sure, it's striking, but it's really grappling. If you know how to grapple, you know how to fight. For the most part, you know how to fight. I think that's
in the same way that if you can make hot dogs, you know how to cook. Oh man. So we've been talking a lot lately here, Pat, about about position before submission, and then we talked about submission. And our latest episode was about another form of grappling, which is very similar to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And we have, of course, it's a very insular community, getting bigger. Mm-hmm. The world of jiu-jitsu, if you will, and it's becoming more popular and it's becoming more monetized in the world of jiu-jitsu. From, like, even in my time, which in jiu-jitsu years is actually pretty long ago. Because it wasn't super popular when I started. Although it was moderately accessible, or maybe even less than that. Mm-hmm. The fact that I could do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Central Pennsylvania was actually.
That's a big deal. The fact that we still can is pretty cool.
Right. But now you can do it all over the place. There's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms everywhere.
You got the keys.
I have the keys. That's right. I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But when I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like finding things like gis, finding black belts was was a task. Finding a blue belt was a task, So I mean, in a lot of like the merchandise and like the brand of like just the general branding of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was like non-existent. Mm-hmm. I mean, there were things about it, but now like you said, we have larger brands sponsoring Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters. We have brands inside of Jiu-Jitsu that are becoming larger and more visible. I mean, it's a pretty exciting time. And what we're hoping that this leads to is that we have professional athletes and competitors that are getting paid to perform, to do Jiu-Jitsu, right? Because it's very small now. Like the biggest purses are very tiny in comparison to most professional athletics.
Yeah.
And most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters, professional or not, don't get paid at all.
Grappling, or at least Jiu-Jitsu, like that, as far as like being a competitive or as a what's it called, monetization stream, revenue stream,
right? For
most people nowadays, you have to be something else. And then that, like, you have to be either a CEO of fucking Tesla, and you got to be like, I'll fight you in an MMA fight to have people be interested, or be like an mixed martial art. And even then, like, it's you get more of the MMA crowd that would be interested in just watching a pure grappling match. But still, there's so much more, or you have to be the absolute best. You're the king. Who shall not be named,
not on this podcast,
or you are somebody up and coming. Like, there has to be a thing about you, and that's the thing. Like the stardom, there has to be some kind of
For a lot of these competitors that started in grappling arts, and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu being one of the major ones, is that they get funneled into mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
So, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the problem is that like there should be an avenue for these athletes to be able to perform grappling.
Yeah.
And get paid for it.
It shouldn't have to be that's a stepping stone into
right.
Then you get your money career.
Right.
Then you start fighting Jake Paul.
Right.
And that's when you become a jiu-jitsu black belt. You fight Jake Paul. Yeah, in a boxing match.
Right. At the age of 40.
Yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? Like I would love to see it not a stepping stone, but like a stepping off point. Like that's where you can just go like, all right, here's where that's where I'd like to make a career, somewhere in grappling in the world
of course. Yeah. I mean,
it
wouldn't, it's something that, I find it interesting because it does, again, guys, we are leading up to our main topic today, and all of this is part of that. And, the things that I wonder is it strictly the striking component that makes people want to pay money? Is it because they're like, I need to see blood, like I need to see someone's face get punched?
I know when I started,
or someone kicked.
Yeah, when I started watching it, and that's the thing. So it used to be when I started watching mixed martial arts, probably like 2005.
Okay,
around that time.
Yeah. So back in the day,
and that was when I would watch a fight. If it would go to a decision, I would be disappointed, and that's just So I definitely had a bloodlust. Like I wanted to see a knockout.
Right.
I wanted to see, but I would also get frustrated. This is so funny when this is how naive I was as a fan starting out with watching martial arts in general. When I used to watch Anderson Silva, I would get frustrated because it would end too quick.
Right. And you're like,
he would make it look too easy.
I didn't get my money's worth.
Yeah,
right.
I want to watch some punching back and forth, but he'd just be like, boop.
Boom. Right.
And I'd just be like, I win. You know what I mean? Like, so it was really, but then I learned to respect. Now I watch, and I don't get disappointed when there's not a finish, but I want to finish.
Right.
I want there to be, and luckily that is something when I hear that's so fucking cool now, Jeff, when you are watching a fight and somebody takes someone's back and people cheer.
Yeah.
They get the hooks in. There's no punching happening.
Right.
They just know that there's a finish coming up.
That's right.
And I think it's since 2005 to now, what year is it?
2023. 23, dude.
I literally forgot. I almost said almost 20 years later. Yeah, it's almost 20 years later. Damn. Wow. Sorry. That's a little bit of shock there.
Yeah.
But in that time, I have personally seen it from me watching as a spectator. I respect a finish, but I respect a good fight no matter what. But I think what the fans are looking for is they know when he gets into an armbar position, when they get into a position on someone's back, they get in a seatbelt position, something like that. when they get control like that, people are like, oh boy, here head and arms coming up.
Yeah,
You're like, oh cool. So it is progressing, but it is slowly but surely.
Well, it's interesting that you bring it up because that is our main topic today, and you said that you just said it, and that is you want the finish. You want to see a definitive end to the match,
just like porn.
What are we waiting for?
Yeah, a finale. Ta-da! Yeah. I don't need Bruce Buffer, but I need a little.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, right.
Sorry.
It's like there's nothing worse than like you get to the very end and they're like, for more, log on. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, come on. What happened? Where'd it go?
So
yes, one on finish.
One of the great minds of jiu-jitsu that we have is a guy by the name of John Danaher. And for those that are listening to the podcast are probably practitioners and know who John is.
I wore my rash guard for him.
Yeah, your Slayer one.
Yeah.
And John is known, like he's a very philosophical, or he has a very philosophical approach, at least demeanor, right, towards his jiu-jitsu, and he articulates this very well in his teachings, and the way that he talks, through interviews, social media. I mean, he's a very well established, and he's made, arguably some of the greatest champions, and is in the process of doing it again.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is predicated upon like a true understanding and reinforcement of the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. And every time he goes back and talks about these things, you find that it's really relatable. I mean, for everybody that practices jiu-jitsu, you're like, yes, this makes perfect sense. And he puts it in context to like the actual fight. And one of the things that he said recently here, and it had everything to do with how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is received from an entertainment standpoint, is that his philosophy now says that we have to start focusing our attention on the finish. Mm-hmm. And now I know that there are, of course, several schools of thought in Jiu-Jitsu, and always has been, that like the pinnacle of every Jiu-Jitsu match and every exchange is the submission.
Yeah.
But the way that it's approached, and I am guilty of this as well, and maybe I say guilty is not the right word, because we focus a lot on positional dominance. And that is something that I think, looking at it from the perspective of wanting to focus more on the finish is contradictory to some of and that's one of the things I find most interesting about it. I love contradictions, guys.
Yeah.
I love saying one thing, but then saying another at another time, and being like, life's full of contradictions.
But that's what it is. That's what jiu-jitsu is. It's one of those things where, how many times I personally have done stuff where I feel like I get a finish with things that people are like, oh yeah, you'd never get a finish from there. Or like, how people say, it's a weird thing where like, oh, you would never get a cross collar from this place or whatever. It's like, it's one of those things of like, it's one of those things that I feel like anytime somebody tells me this can never happen, that's the thing I'm going to focus on, and I'm going to try to get that finished. Like, you know what I mean? So it
intrigues you.
Yeah,
right?
It intrigues me. It's like one of those things of like it's not supposed to work.
So being unorthodox, right? Yeah.
Unorthodox. So I get unconventional. Like, don't ever do this except for when you're doing this.
All the rules, right? Exactly. And there's a lot of that in jiu-jitsu because again, like we don't know everything, and and like as soon as you make something like a rule, somebody's going to break it. So John's approach to this, and the place that he wants this to take place in is within the culture of jiu-jitsu itself. So not making it the responsibility of external forces like the large demand from the public to see finishes or submissions, but rather we just change the way we approach our training and then our competition from the inside out. And so that makes it more attractive for people that want to see finishes in fights.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I was like, it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. It is, in some ways, contradictory to the way that, I was raised in jiu-jitsu, and contradictory in some fashion the ways that I teach jiu-jitsu. But by that same token, I do often tell, especially our competitors, our competition crew, that we are hunters. Yeah. We are here. I want that finish. And one of the things that it does is that just from a jiu-jitsu perspective, it is a definitive end to the match if you get the submission. Like, there's no arguing. You tapped.
Yeah.
You quit.
You won.
And I won.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting part is that, and it's something that I often say when our competitors are going to submission-only tournaments and going for, I want them to fight it like it is a points tournament, though.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to do that is because the point system rewards the progression of position. It rewards you for continuing to progress through each one, and understanding that like you should care if you get taken down.
Yeah.
Because if the person who's taking you down understands the game correctly, they're going to be in an advantageous position, and you're going to be on the defense right away. So I know you could be lackadaisical about it, and I have been in the past when it comes to submission. They're like, don't worry about it. You'll have time to recover and do all these other things. But something else that's been changing a lot in the submission-only formats is that the time limit has started to shrink.
Yeah.
So that there's more action more quickly, right?
Yeah.
And so when I started in sub-only tournaments, there was no time limit.
That's awesome.
There was zero time limit. That match can go on for hours if it needed to.
Do you think that has something to do with the number of competitors?
Of course,
like
of course.
That could be also like the popularity. So that's another good sign that it's growing.
Agreed. Yeah, and that's the thing. So I mean, you can get up to like even just traditional matches. Now we have a tournament that we have a couple of guys going to this weekend. That it's a 6-minute match.
That's crazy.
Sub only. Yeah,
6 minutes
with 3-minute overtime if it goes to that.
Isn't the standard like 8 or 10?
The standard is 15 minutes now.
15.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
Hell.
and then so like, but we have like, and there's a variety of formats for sub only, and one of the ones that I really enjoy is the formats that like you have, the first 10 minutes there's no points awarded, and then after that points start to accumulate.
Those are my favorite to watch.
If you look at championship fights in the UFC for mixed martial arts, it's 5-minute rounds. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what does that equal?
25 minutes. Plus corner time. So
Good math.
28? 29.
Yeah, right. So I mean you're really looking at like a half hour for a fight.
Yeah.
And then just on like the guys that come on the card and the gals that come on the card before the champion fights, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? It's 3 5-minute rounds with a minute break in between. And so, but for these guys who are doing sub only, there's no break.
Yeah.
It's straight grappling the whole time, right?
Actually, do you get penalized in sub only? Are there penalties and not like would you get penalized for stalling or anything like that? I can't remember.
I don't. Not typically. They will get the match moving, and if you don't, and if they're not, they'll break you up and make you go back to your feet.
Stand back up. Okay.
Yeah, and then you got to go back at it.
Yeah.
So, so the idea is to continue the action constantly, right? So, but if we can, so one could argue that's like, well, the matches are too long, but you're already watching matches, from a mixed martial arts perspective, that's at a minimum 17 minutes,
right?
And unless there's a finish, right?
Yeah.
And then in championship rounds, I mean, you could be there for half an hour watching this,
Right. And how many fighters do we know of that are like, they start slow? So like the first 2 rounds, we're just watch them get their ass beat. He starts slow.
You've just talked about my entire Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career.
Yeah. He starts slow.
This guy starts slow. He finishes slow too, by the way.
But I do everything slow.
Yeah. But yeah, it's true. But like the thrill of it. And I don't disagree with John on this. I think that like from a if we look at like how we are teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and the idea though doesn't just extend to entertainment value, but the mindset of our students who definitively want to finish a fight so that there's no more fight left.
Yeah.
I mean, it's over. This is a done deal. It's an interesting concept. I mean, and a way to think about the culture of jiu-jitsu in a way that, I think is contradictory to the way most of us are taught. And also, it gives us something new to think about. You have a certain level of skill acquisition over the years that you train, and why not just like, because that's, for me personally, guys, this is one of the things that I struggle with is pulling the trigger. I'm in a position where I know I can finish this fight, and for one reason or another, I'm like, it's okay, just let him go. Let him go. No, don't let him go.
Yeah, finish.
Finish him.
Finish it up.
Finish him.
Because I think that's also it's one of the biggest arguments, at least in MMA, that I'm familiar with, and I could totally see why somebody would have trouble there not being a finish. Is the judging in MMA lately has been pretty suspect.
Yeah,
it's pretty shitty.
Yeah,
judges are the scoring in MMA is flawed, but isn't it in some cases with jiu-jitsu where at the end of it, if there is no winner, the ref just goes, "This guy won."
Yeah, there's definitely competition.
Come down to that. Like, it has to be a little bit more unified, I think, in general. And I think a sub only,
like Polaris, for instance, is like that. So if you then that's a sub only format. But like if you get to the end and there's no clear winner, a judge decides, or panel of judges decide who's the winner.
And that's ultimately, I think that's why because people don't like this is the one, like I've talked about it many times, this is the one art where I don't think you need judging. I think it's pretty definitive if you're watching it for most people that can go like, I think that guy won.
Right.
Or that lady won. Or this, whatever it is.
Sure.
But it's 100% definitive if you get the tap or you knock them the fuck out.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like that's it.
Yeah.
So if you get the submission or you get a TKO or KO, that is the way to keep that special art where we're like, that art beat the shit out of the other art.
Right.
And that's how we know which art it is.
Yeah.
But with jiu-jitsu, it's not crazy to kind of use those same set of logic to say, like, if you just have a finish, or even if you're just looking for a finish the whole time.
Right.
If you're looking for a finish, that is what people cheer. A lot of people cheer jiu-jitsu and they don't realize it. When you see a scramble and and they both stand back up, that's why it's impressive the way they escaped that.
It's exciting,
position.
yeah.
It's exciting because
it looks like they're doomed, and then all of a sudden,
they make
it
look effortless. They almost break dance out of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where you're watching this, so that's people do appreciate, and that's the thing, is it came with somebody attempting a submission. And then the other person taking that opportunity to sweep them or whatever it may be.
Right, reverse it.
That's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for a finish in jiu-jitsu, you're going to create those scrambles, and it's going to be entertaining to watch.
I would think so.
So
right.
Even if you're looking for the submission the entire time, it's going to be more entertaining, more accessible to people that are.
And I think that's the point, right? So I mean, because if you
they can relate it, they go, "Oh, I've seen that before."
Right. Right. And to no fault of the competitors that work at a professional level now, in a lot of the high level competitions like the IBJJF, they play to the rule set, and the rule set dictates that like they can accumulate enough points where if they get to a position where they don't want to lose an opportunity or put themselves in a vulnerable position for a submission, they'll just stall out as best as they can to win the competition.
And I don't like that.
Yeah, and why wouldn't they?
Right.
Though?
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, you're about to become a champion, right? You're about to win your division or have an opportunity to go to the next level and win the entire thing. And again, part of that problem is that we don't pay the competitors.
Yeah.
So the only way for professional level jiu-jitsu to make decent money on a broader scale is to have that reputation, open gyms, give seminars, and work your ass off based on your competitive career that pays you nothing.
Yeah.
And so it's important for you to win these things, and so you're going to play by the rule set. The rule set says you don't have to finish them; you just have to sit on top of them.
Yeah, you can get you swept them, you took them down, you passed guard or whatever.
Right.
You're in mount, and then boom, that's all you need.
Right, and I mean, really, like if you get your 2 points for the takedown in the beginning of the match, and you're able to keep them from doing anything else, you could win the entire thing just on 2 points.
Yeah, and I just know that, and there's a way, and this is a great opportunity too, because especially with somebody who is like a pure jiu-jitsu celebrity, like he who shall not be named,
because we just try, not because we don't want to say
GNR. He is like him going against a retired mixed martial artist that has a huge name,
right,
or even a current mixed martial artist with a huge name,
right,
to headline that card and then have all these other things. It like we can show you why you should be invested in this, and why this league would be a cool thing. If Power Slap is heading into their second fucking season, like you can't have a goddamn jiu-jitsu like nobody like Nate Diaz left. Nobody's slapping anymore.
Right.
Nobody's slapping in the octagon. So why is that even a part of the UFC
right,
alumnus? Let's have a fucking grappling tournament or series or something like that.
Sure, and if not, if you just base it on a points type of environment, I mean, we have examples of very exciting fights in just like freestyle wrestling, for instance. Mm-hmm. There's no submissions at all in freestyle wrestling, and so but the matches are extraordinarily exciting because the format's set up for it to be constant action.
Yeah.
And for it to be strictly based on positional dominance, right, or dominance of your opponent, and like so, there's like bits of this where we could see success in these arenas, but right now we kind of have this we sort of have this void in jiu-jitsu that like I think that's what Danaher's speaking to is that like we can still have those things. But we really need to progress it to the point where we're trying to like make this engaging for people to want to participate in. If we want to make it something that athletes are going to get paid for, that sponsors are going to want to put money into, and make it like the global phenomenon that it really should be, you need to make it exciting.
Yeah.
You need to make it interesting.
Yeah, there was something that I when you brought this up to me, it reminded me of like there's been debate in the past, like with basketball back in the day, they started the shot clock.
Right.
You can only, pass the ball around for a certain amount of time before you have to fucking try to score.
Right.
Because we're tired of you just pass. But that's how the game went. Like you said, you can't be mad at those players at that time for playing like boring pieces of shit because that's how they were taught and that's how they learned and that's how baskall was played.
And that's how the game was played. Right. And they did it well.
Right. They did it perfectly.
They did it so well.
Fell asleep.
And I think that's what happens with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Is that you have such high-level competitors and they're able to neutralize each other's position, but they're not concerning themselves with the finish. And so as a result, you just have you can have a match that goes to a draw.
Yeah.
And nothing happens.
Yeah. And and that's the thing. It's boring to people.
Right.
It's boring to people because there's no if you're not a person who actually has done this thing or is already super into it, it's not going to gain new people with the way it is.
Right.
It's still dusty and we need more not even more scoring because that's the thing is people can watch this and watch somebody go up 82-0 in a fucking grappling match, and you're like, okay. I saw one guy jumping around another guy. You know what I mean? Like that's all they saw. So like if you have something where like it's smooth and they're able to move into a position where it looks cool and dangerous, that's what people want to emulate. And if it's just you holding onto someone's lapels and you have a high mount on them and you're just kind of standing there,
right?
Like they're bringing to be like, okay, well, that's cool that he's just kind of bullying him.
Yeah. Well, and we're really we're talking about making it accessible to people that would be fans of jiu-jitsu.
Yes.
Versus practitioners, which could ultimately lead to you wanting to be a practitioner. Because I think that jiu-jitsu on a whole, even in even in points matches for IBJJF competition, for instance, or a lot of other formats that are points only, it is exciting for me because I know what's going on.
Yeah.
I know what's happening under there, and that's exciting for me. But to for somebody else to come and watch it, who loves fights and watches, they're like, this is ridiculous.
Was it recently Andre Galval and him?
Yeah, and he who shall not be named. Yeah.
That was the last one that they had the big event for, right? Wasn't that it was on Fight Pass and all this other shit?
Yeah.
I went over to Muskin's house to watch that. and Muskin was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to have some of the neighbors over." And I was like, "Okay. Are
Lame.
You sure? Do I know them?"
Do I want to know them? I
always ask people I'm invited to someone's house and I'm just like, "Why are you inviting other people?" I don't know them. But then I get there and it's like, and they're like, "Yeah, this is all right." And we're like, and then you fall into the trap where you're trying to sell people on jiu-jitsu.
Right.
While you're watching it and you're like, no, these are the two greatest grapplers in the game right now.
Right.
They're going to go at it.
Right.
And we've been talking about this for years. That guy slapped that other guy. And then the other guy did nothing. And then followed him and then got slapped again. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
It's that was one of the ones where I'm just like, damn, what the fuck is going on? Why aren't you doing anything? He slapped you twice.
Exactly.
But That was the thing, and trying to build anticipation, even as we're watching this and watching the build-up, and even the match, everybody else was like, you know what I mean? Because it just wasn't the right. They didn't do it right. It wasn't the right setting. It didn't work. Even with him writing down his prediction, handing it to the fucking commentator, and we're all like, "But that's how he said he's going to do it."
Yeah,
and he did it.
Right,
Like,
and then he did it.
Isn't that cool? Nobody cares. But
Yeah.
again, if you put on golf and you're like, "Look at that drive," I'm going to be like, "Where'd it go?"
Was
Every time they hit the
it?
ball, I'm like, I hit. There it is. Oh, that's a good shot. I think. I don't know. Where's the hole? So, like, I get it. I get why somebody wouldn't. But even at that level, like, it's so funny that, people can be. That's the two of the greatest grapplers in grappling.
Yeah.
Are going to grapple. And you're going to watch it. And they're like, I don't care. Oh,
Right.
they're not allowed to hit here?
That's right. There's no striking.
Watch this shit.
You
Watch
just give it a second.
Fucking watch.
Just
And
trust
I'm
me.
hoping that it'll change them, but it's like anything else. It's like playing a song for somebody and them not listening. It hurts. It
Yeah.
hurts to show it to people and them think, nope, I still think it's a little gay. No, it's not. Okay, it's a little.
I like it. I think the best way to approach it is to experiment with this thought and try, because there's no harm, no foul in this. I mean, it'll either work and we'll start to see a larger appreciation for the grappling arts, and especially if there's a focus on the finish. I think there's a way to incorporate the points. I think, like I said, ADCC does a good job, in that respect.
Like the half-half.
Yeah, and and I think it would just globally make jiu-jitsu more accessible to more people, so they can at least have their bloodlust.
Yeah.
Yeah, because submissions are
Combat
nasty.
jiu-jitsu also was not it. I don't think that's it. I don't think that's the answer.
I just don't get down on it,
They
man.
just slap ribs.
Yeah,
Ouch.
Why
are you doing that?
I just don't get down on combat jiu-jitsu.
I don't. I thought I would. I really did think.
Did you think you would?
I thought for some reason because again, going back to shout out to the nameless black belt that I've seen a million times submit a bodybuilder or embarrass them.
Right.
But like anytime I watch those videos where somebody's like, I could beat your ass, and then they just kind of get there and they're just like, smack, smack. And I'm just like, man, that looks so satisfying. And then I watch combat jiu-jitsu and it doesn't translate. It doesn't translate unless that person is being a complete dickhead.
Sure, because there's no rage behind it.
Yeah, I don't have any.
You're like, why are you slapping this? Why are you slapping this guy?
Yeah, why are you doing that? But if he came in there and he's like, I'm gonna beat the fuck out of you, I'm just like, Jeff, you should slap this guy. So like, I don't. It's weird that you're right. The bloodlust is still there. But,
Sure,
but you gotta show them how it translates.
Right.
Right. What does a finish look like in jiu-jitsu? And finishes in jiu-jitsu are still very exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
If you like Paul Craig in MMA, you'll like jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That's all he does. Sometimes to his own fault. Sometimes I got your leg, but there's a fist. This guy's got fist. He's like, what? Oh, ow, ow, ow. But it's still exciting. I promise. Jiu-jitsu is exciting, and we're going to make it more exciting, because the best part about this plan, Jeff,
yes,
is that John Danaher has come up with the perfect solution to make it better, because it's not going to get worse this way.
Right.
Looking for a finish is not going to get worse.
I think that's probably the point. Right?
You're not reinventing the wheel,
and it is one of our primary objectives.
Yeah,
it's not like he's introduced a new concept to jiu-jitsu. Like,
nope.
Hey, we could submit people.
Guys, I got an idea.
Now, just hear me out on this one.
You ever heard of a rear naked Beck?
So I guess that leads us into our next topic for today's podcast.
It's the world of jiu-jitsu
today.
I want to talk about your move that you invented.
The move that I invented.
The Beck choke, aka Beckless Abandon.
Beckless Abandon,
or any other name that might come up. I feel like there has never been a more fitting name besides the Beck choke, because your own flesh and blood Beck choked me today.
Yeah.
And he did it in a new way from a completely different position.
Yeah.
You should, if you are interested in the Beck choke, come to Harrisburg Jiu-Jitsu and ask Jeff, because that's the only way you're going to learn.
Yeah.
Or your wonderful son.
or my son now, or any of you guys that know it.
Well, I mean, I tried it on him, but it didn't. It also doesn't work on a Beck.
So yeah, that's a weird one. Like, and first of all, guys, I really don't know that I invented it.
Yeah, but,
and as much as I invented it in my own mind, but I don't know that nobody else has done it.
I think at this point,
I just haven't found anybody else that's done it.
You've been saying it enough around, and people have
been... It's branding.
Yeah, it's branding. It really, that's all it is.
Right.
Now, at this point, if somebody wants to take ownership of it, they got to get it from you.
That's right.
They got to slap you.
Yeah. I put the little R registered.
Yeah.
Or the little, I didn't register it. I TM'd it, trademarked.
He actually choked somebody out and then mailed that person back to himself. So that way it has the copyright. It's a poor man's copyright.
That's right.
There's an unconscious person in a FedEx package.
With an apology note, but we have there's a choke that I'm doing from the back for those that aren't familiar with what's happening. It was me thinking about like setting up a triangle choke from the back, but at the time that I wanted to teach it, I had a bunch of new students who have never been exposed to the triangle choke at all. And so I thought this would be a really odd position to teach them a triangle choke from. So I was like, how can I modify this thing? And I recognized that there was a potential for a choke just with my legs over the shoulder and a seatbelt control while I'm on your back and just crank it. And you've got a choke.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it worked.
It works from there.
It's the first time this has happened in my entire jiu-jitsu career where I was like, I thought about like how to modify something in a way that would be unique and interesting. I couldn't find anybody else that's done it since. I mean, I haven't seen anybody do it.
He also has been Googling the Beck choke, and he's like, it doesn't exist.
I guess it's mine.
What do you know?
Right. And again, if somebody else has done it, awesome. I'm sure they have. But for me, it was revolutionary. And then I got to go to class and teach it.
Yeah.
And now I'm still teaching it. And now I'm teaching it from different positions, which is kind of cool. So it's like evolving. Yeah. And then apparently my son, who was doing jiu-jitsu this morning, did it from another position got it to Pat and got it.
I maybe other ones as well, but he definitely succeeded with me. If you don't know what we're talking about, come to Harrisburg Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
And figure out exactly what the Beck choke is.
Right.
Also, I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to a gentleman that I don't know if he gets enough shine.
Okay.
It's not necessarily. It's only in the World of Jiu-Jitsu today because it showed up recently in my feed.
Sure.
But have you seen what Fabricio Verdum looks like recently?
Yeah, I have.
Looks great.
Yeah, he does look great.
That is somebody I would like to see in our retired MMA fighters grappling league.
Yeah.
Because I honestly feel like hear a lot about GOATs. Greatest of all time in mixed martial arts or UFC, just mixed martial arts in general. Let's just say in general.
Right.
I don't know why he's not brought up more. And I want to say that I posit to you, Jeff, the theory that Fabricio Verdum, if not a GOAT, I feel like you have to have beat him to be considered a GOAT.
Okay. And you say a GOAT, and that's the thing. Like, that's
I know.
the problem with
everybody's a fucking GOAT nowadays.
Right? Exactly.
It's like the BMF champion or whatever.
Right.
There's one in every division now, for fuck's sake. But okay.
Yeah, it's funny. That is like, so if you're one of the greatest of all time, I guess,
Yeah.
No, and I think it does. It opens the door then to a lot of like other fighters that would have otherwise not been recognized or even remotely considered. But part of it is just like the optics of that fighter. So I mean, usually the greatest of all time, walks the walk, talks the talk, but also makes all the money, right? They want them, they want to see them in these fights.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is so it's not just like about skill
but he's got it. I mean, starting a fight with a flying front kick.
Yeah.
Finishing most fights with a submission or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
It was do yourself a favor if you are watching or listening to this podcast. Just do just a little dive on. Just watch some Verdum fights from obviously the past. Any one of them, any one of the fights, and it's fucking entertaining. Him against Cain Velasquez in Mexico City is still one of those ones where he's just like, it is insanity. When I know that there was factors that played into that with elevation and all that other thing, but like that's part of it. That's part of being, in my opinion, one of the greatest of all time. Is taking in all of those factors, being a true mixed martial artist.
Okay,
like I would love to see prime Verdum against prime John Jones at heavyweight.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Tell me that's not an exciting fight.
I would think it would be a very exciting fight.
And even, I mean, you can't say. I say Prime Verdum maybe it might be now because maybe he's not being tested for things. This is all alleged. I don't know for sure, but he looks great.
And we're back to testing.
So even if it was just a pure grappling match, I think that would be something cool to see. Fabricio, just I want to see him more. You know what I mean? Like he looks great. He's in great shape. I want to see him more.
Right.
I want to see him out there.
Yeah.
So shout out to him. In my opinion, one of my goats.
Okay, great.
In MMA all the time.
Good. I love it.
Yeah. So what's next, buddy?
Well, are you a Nicholas Meregali fan?
I am probably familiar, but not directly with the name.
So this is like one of the problems, like with like jiu-jitsu, is that we have these all-stars and these people that are like, and even for jiu-jitsu practitioners, it's hard to keep track of like who's doing what because we don't have a ton of exposure as jiu-jitsu fighters.
Right.
So it's easier to track like a star athlete in the UFC than it is for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a whole, like which teams are with. But so if you're not familiar with Nicholas Meregali, he was somebody that has just taken on the task of like work. He's a gi champion, okay, arguably one of the best gi grapplers on the planet, and he's just broken into no gi grappling here 3 years ago. You have to forgive me. I don't remember. It has not been long. Okay.
Yeah.
But he's doing amazing. He's doing really, really well. And he's under John Danaher's tutelage currently. And there was and if you guys, I'm just fascinated by him because now, speaking of like the greatest of all time, what they're measuring is the fact that he's a champion in both gi and no gi jiu-jitsu, right? So they're kind of putting together the complete package and saying, there's an opportunity here for us to understand Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as not just one thing, but multiple things.
Right.
And if you can go in and be a champion in all of this, like nobody can really argue you're
right.
So, but if you got here recently, Meregali fought Durate. Did I say his name right?
I think
Kanan Durate. Anyway, fought him in a submission-only match here. It was on Flow Grappling. If you guys get a chance to check it out, It's actually, I think it's available on YouTube just to watch. It goes almost I'm not going to give it away.
Okay.
Right? But I am going to tell you is that it goes almost the entire 20 minutes.
No gi, right?
It is no gi, and it has a very dramatic finish.
Ooh. That's very exciting.
And it was totally worth watching the entire match for that last...
Dude, we were talking about it earlier with finishes in MMA and stuff like that. There's been plenty of MMA fights that I've watched where like it's just it's competitive the entire time.
Yeah.
And those are the fights that I really don't care who wins at the end. That was a great fucking fight.
Right.
Especially when there's a finish.
Right.
Even right at the end.
Well, so because again, that's the thing though. It's just like I don't necessarily need the drama of like one fighter talking shit to another for me to enjoy it.
You're gonna fight.
I mean, I used the like what was it, 2017 that Gary Tonin fought Dylan Dennis.
Yeah.
And for like there was like the second fight or whatever, and Tonin won the fight by decision at the end.
Yeah.
And even Tonin said, like, I don't consider this a win. Like, I didn't submit him, so but like those two hate each other, and like there's all this shit talk, and then nothing.
Yeah.
Then you're like, okay, so you both fought each other off.
We're gonna have to move it up to slaps.
Right.
Slap next time.
Right. So I don't need that element, but to watch Meregali like come in and like not have been a no-gi competitor and start like understanding that like the things that the skill acquisition that he's had up to that point can translate over to the no-gi world, and then having a great coaching staff that push him through becoming like right out the gate a champion is pretty amazing. So anyway, so for me in the world of jiu-jitsu today, if you're not keeping your eyes on Nicholas Meregali, please do so.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a follow. I'll have to check that out with after all my Verdum fights.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rewatch him. Hell yeah.
So, yeah, with all that said, you know what time it is.
It's time to ask
a black belt.
First question from Aaron, ERIN.
Okay.
Not AARN. Not Aaron. What's the last thing you remember learning?
I mean, good Lord.
Right? Isn't that a fucking crazy question? I'm like, I thought about it and I was like,
well, yeah. I mean, so like the last thing I remember learning in terms of like new technique or
just in general, yeah, anything. I don't even know if I don't know if that means jiu-jitsu or if just in general, like just what life lessons, like.
Aaron, just as recently as this week, I mean, I had one of our students, shout out to Justin Price, who like helped me a lot with my Russian ties.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so like that was like, and it's a takedown that we were working on for the last couple of weeks, and we were doing an ankle pick off the Russian tie. There's lots of things to do off the Russian tie, but just the setup for the Russian tie was a huge thing. The week before that, shout out to Joe Stetter, my best friend and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, he teaches me like little things, like, and sometimes big things, but teaches me little things about like. But basically, it's with complete frustration to like, why are you doing this? Like, you're an idiot, you know? Like I'm gonna beat the shit out of you for this, right? and it's always with love. But I like he always teaches me like those little things. But Aaron, the why this question's so complicated is because I get taught things like all the time, like some of the most fundamental and basic things where I'm like, oh, that piece of my game has been missing this entire time. Sometimes it translates into really big things, and sometimes it's just like the tiniest like adjustment or understanding of like where my weight goes, or like how like for my takedown stuff, like what is always interesting to me is that like I just don't push enough. Like I don't push and pull enough.
Yeah.
Like I get to the position, but then I stall the position out, and then they recover, and then I'm back to it. So I'm successfully getting to the position, but then I'm not taking advantage of like then dominating that
finish in the position.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so I'm getting a lot of advice in that. And like for the Russian tie specifically was just like a much cleaner setup for how to get to that position. And most especially just like, and Justin actually used like some of my own fundamentals, to teach me the same things like the way that I teach. Yeah. He's like, don't try and go through it. Go over it, under it, around it. Right. It's like the path of least resistance is like, that's how you, and I was like, of course, like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
but
shuck it.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily pull it.
Yeah.
You can just,
I can just move around.
Shrug it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like, okay, it was like a piece that I was missing. And
I love learning new things.
So I was thinking about this, and Aaron, you've opened up like a can of worms here that like has really been on my mind recently. What I noticed is something that I do too, Pat, and I identified it just as early as this morning as like I kid you not, I am combing my beard and I'm watching a technique video.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He always gets 100.
I get to 100, right? I was getting ready for the after I got done with jiu-jitsu this morning. I got home and I took a shower and got ready to come over here for podcasting. And I'm watching a technique video, and I'm like, I'm always doing something like the things that entertain me or the things that teach me stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's it.
Same.
And I was like, man, I am obsessed with this. Like, what is wrong with you, dude? Like, you cannot like stand to like get ready without watching a jiu-jitsu video right now.
Yeah. So next question.
Yeah, by all means.
Speaking of learning, let's learn about Jeff some more, guys.
let's learn.
Eddie asks,
are we learning more about me? I guess we are.
EDDIE. Is that Eddie or Edie?
It's Eddie.
Eddie.
Yeah.
Okay. Eddie asks, what's your favorite theme park and why? I knew you would say no. You don't like theme parks, don't you? I fucking knew it.
Yeah, I don't like theme parks.
So, have you been? Have you been to theme parks?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But my favorite theme park is an easy one. It's Hershey Park, and the reason I like Hershey Park is because my wife loves Hershey Park.
Does she really?
She loves it.
Is she a big sweet tooth? Does she have sweet tooth?
She doesn't have much of a sweet tooth, but she, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's just like a connection to her childhood but she loves it, and I love to see her at Hershey Park.
Nice. Okay. So
I get sick on rides. I don't
Yeah.
like. I'm not fun at any theme park ever.
you're
I don't
the
like
purse
crowds.
holder. You hold the bags while
I hold the
everybody goes
bags.
on the rides.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I'll go on some rides, guys. I mean, I'm not a total stick in the mud, but it's just not entertaining for me. I don't like sitting out in the heat, the expensive food, the huge crowds, and then ultimately, I don't like. I get on the ride and I'm like, okay, so.
Yeah. Cool. I waited 2.5 hours for 40 seconds.
Of it whipping my head around. Right, exactly.
Ow!
Yeah. Slamming
Bars
into
too
the
tight.
side.
Bars too tight. My knees are hitting the thing.
Exactly.
Ow, ow, ow,
it's just
ow,
uncomfortable. The whole thing's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And but I if I had to pick one, I'd pick Hershey Park because it makes my wife so happy and I love it.
But theme parks are fun in general. But you know what's even more fun than that?
What?
Turntables.
Yes.
And what's on them?
Yeah.
Jeff, this afternoon, I ask you, what is on your turntable? I ask of you, Jeff, what is on your turntable? What have you been listening to? Tell the people.
Okay, so what's on my turntable right now is I have two. First of all, I have to tell you from last week's turntable.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody has listened to the episode. And like the first thing I did when I got in my car when I left from
You listen to
podcasting.
Youth Brigade.
No,
Oh.
no, it wasn't Youth Brigade. No.
What'd you do?
Who did I listen to, Pat?
You listened to Living End.
I did listen to
I
Living
knew
End.
it.
And yes, and I was just like, but it led me down the path of like, all this other great. So for our listeners that don't know, like I play the stand-up bass. I play slap bass specifically. I've played in rockabilly bands, punk rock rockabilly bands, psychobilly bands.
That's the one that goes. Dum,
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Only I slapped the shit
And
out of
goes
it.
Click, click,
Yeah,
click,
yeah,
click. You
yeah.
hear that too.
And so
Cool.
and so like I've been a part of that like scene for a really long time, and it is something that I just really love and adore. But it opens up this like whole other avenue to all this different kinds of music that includes like jump blues and like I said, rockabilly, old rock and roll, but all these crazy sounds, and then like the hybrids of those sounds. One of the bands that I absolutely love, and I think won't be everybody's cup of tea,
Okay.
are the Kings of Nothing out of Boston, Massachusetts.
Kings of Nothing. Okay.
Yeah. Now they're no longer a band. Their lead singer Tor, who like I've known personally. We weren't friends in the sense that like I hung out with him on the weekends, but he's somebody that I talk to on a regular basis because you would see, they'd be going to their shows and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the craziest motherfuckers on the planet. All right,
Okay.
Tor unfortunately passed away. He took his own life, and I actually am still torn up about it to this day. But he had no teeth, so he had false teeth, and he would like spit them out at the beginning of the show.
That's pretty cool.
These guys lit everything on fire. And they played dirty R&B, jump blues, and like mix it with like punk rock. It's wild. It's wild. So if you get a chance, you want to listen to the Kings of Nothing, you can start with their first EP. It's called Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Dude, they had a washboard player. They had a washboard player.
That's pretty cool.
Named Necro. and he was always drunk. Everybody was always fucking drunk. It was great. Okay, and it just took me back because you started with the Living End.
That's so weird. That brought you there.
Yeah. Well, I started. So there's a lot. So my kids like have questions about like my past, and I don't know about how you guys feel about it, but like I forget about like a lot of things that happened and things we did when we were younger, and some of that shit was like I don't know how we made it out alive.
Yeah.
Like really, like how did we make it?
Oh yeah, I think about that a lot.
But the Kings of Nothing are a really like sort of a central part of that time period in which things were wild, man.
Yeah.
Like they were out of control, and how anybody lived through this is amazing. But they're a great band. If you really sit down and listen to it, it's a terrific band, full of energy, full of angst. It's got just enough like punk rock in it to be like they're all punkers that play like dirty R&B.
Yeah.
and it's fucking great.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm familiar with dirty R&B. I'm really excited about rhythm and blues.
Yeah, well, rhythm and blues, dirty rhythm and blues. If you start breaking into like the world of guys, like I mean, I'm talking about even the old stuff, like from the 40s and 50s. Like it's good shit. 60s, it was a hot time for dirty R&B, and it's just really gritty, and it's a beautiful sound. But anyway, if I have to recommend a record from the Kings of Nothing, it would be Over the Counter Culture. It was their second to last record that they made. First, listen to the first EP because it gives you context for the band, which is Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying. And then you can, I mean, listen to the whole catalog. They've got 6 records. But Over the Counter Culture is a great example of where everything's sort of just synergized. All right? Mm-hmm. But just to give you guys an example, they do have a song called Fight Song for Fuck Ups.
That makes sense.
Perfect sense. It makes perfect sense.
And if anybody was to give that perspective, I from how you've explained these gentlemen, it seems like...
Let me put it to you this way, guys. Let me put it this way. So it's
funny
not
that he had a washboard in there.
Yeah.
Definitely none of them wash their clothes.
Dude, guys, check this out. You give me this is like my favorite. Like, okay, so they had a piano player. He actually wrote the grand majority of the songs. And it's just like the sweetest guy. Doesn't really like fit in with the rest of the band who are a bunch of thugs. And
he was the one that was like, "All right, guys, are we all going to go to practice now?"
Yeah. But they would travel with an upright piano and carry it into the shows, and he would tune it before the show and play it, and they would set it on fire, and it was like, but it was a full upright piano. It wasn't a keyboard. It was a full fucking piano. You have to respect this. This is crazy, amazing. Yeah. But I remember, like, Pat can attest to this too, like where we come from. It was not unusual for fights to break out.
No.
Okay. And heads to get kicked in, and like everybody like
points to be made.
I'll tell you what, you want to piss off Tor Skoog in the middle of a set when he's singing and you're starting to fight, and he stops the show and he tells you, like, if you want to fight, I'll be right there, and everybody fucking stops.
Intimidating forces, gentlemen.
Yeah, right. He's that guy.
Cool. Yeah. It sounds like a real dude.
Yeah,
for real. Like,
he was a real dude.
That's awesome. That's a great suggestion. Actually, I've never, in the fact that I've never heard of them.
Yeah,
makes, because there's people in that scene that get so much more praise, like Gigi Allen and like certain people that are like shock people or something like that.
Yeah,
I like a spectacle. I don't mind.
Sure,
a
of course,
show.
right.
But that's the thing, is like when it's just, we were talking about like the names of certain bands, when you're like, when they're like dying fetus or something like, and you're like, what are you doing?
Right. Is this just because?
Yeah, you're just doing. So I don't mind. I don't like. It feels more like a kid acting out just for attention,
right?
As opposed to this, where it's just like, no, that's part of our show, and we're going to go the extra mile to bring in more quality. We're not going to set your shit on fire. I'll bring in my own piano to set on fire. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like that to me is more punk than anything.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, guys, that if you want to know what's wrong with me, listen to the Kings of Nothing, and then things start to make sense.
You see my influence.
That's right.
Speaking of influences,
yes, what's on your turntable?
This is no surprise to anybody that knows me personally or has seen me wear shirts or seen my tattoos, but I'm a huge fan of NoFX.
Oh, you like NoFX?
Yeah, it turns out I like them a little.
I've never heard of them.
I have kind of gone into, because only until their most recent release, I have been at least happy with, if not like accepting of, every one of their studio releases.
Right.
All of which, fun fact, are clock in under a half an hour.
Well done.
And also, all of which, over the years, they've been a band that has grown and changed their sound, for sure, but also
still very punk
has
rock.
Been able to put out like great content, in my opinion, as far as music, art in general.
Agreed.
I was watching recently, so this is what brought me into it. So the reason I've been listening to a lot more NoFX lately, Jeff, is because of the TV show NFL Hard Knocks.
Oh, no shit.
With it's the most recent season is with the New York Jets, which is when I was watching football on a more regular basis. That was the team I liked.
Okay.
And they got Aaron Rodgers this year, is a big football guy, and he is with them. I like that show. I like any documentary series about sports in general.
Yeah,
Hard
I do
Knocks
too.
does
It's
it
so
great.
weird. I do too.
Hard Knocks is great. It's like perfect. Even if you don't like football, it's a
Right.
very entertaining show, and you get into it.
Right.
And you understand more how each element of a sport breaks down and how important each part is in general.
Gotcha.
So, but when I'm watching this, I am thinking like, man, how fucking cool would it be if there was a show like this for bands? Like a band that's like, like this is like just a documentary of just a month in the life or a couple weeks in touring with this band.
Right.
How do they put the tour together? What are all the parts? And I was like, wait a minute. There is a show like that. It's called NoFX's Backstage Passport.
Okay.
It already exists. So this is kind of a weird thing of turntable-wise. That was what brought me to thinking about NoFX. It's a show, just what I'm talking about. They pick only exclusively the places that they've never toured before that are always considered very dangerous or maybe not the best to bring all of your expensive equipment. You know what I mean? Like dangerous clubs, dangerous shows, dangerous areas, and just in general, just a more like to bring it back to their roots a little bit.
Sure.
And remember what it was like when they started. It was probably at this point, maybe like 10 years ago that this came out.
Okay.
One season got released on DVD. The other one is free, I think, on YouTube, but you can find it anywhere. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, great.
But I have narrowed it down to my favorite 3 albums by NoFX.
Okay, I'm ready.
Are, I would say, So Long, Thanks for All the Shoes.
Great one.
Heavy Petting Zoo.
A must.
And White Trash, Two Heaves and a Bean.
Wow.
So I would say those 3 are like, and when I was talking about like them growing and changing as a band.
Yeah.
Those 2 of which are close to the same era. I feel like White Trash So Long and Thanks for All the Shoes and Heavy Petting Zoo are close to each other.
Right.
Genre wise, but White Trash and Two Heaps and a Bean almost sounds like a completely different band.
It is essentially, right?
You know what I mean?
It's all the same members, but yeah, it's like they're very young.
They're a band that has been almost like you said, the same 4 members the whole time.
Yeah.
Writing great music this whole time. Fat Mike is an inspiration for me as far as production and DIY mentality.
Right.
Overall, this band is something of an inspiration, and still to this day, they're saying they're on their final tour. I don't know if I believe it.
Right.
But I, until this most recent release, have been super excited with all of their releases.
Right.
Hate to see them go, but love listening to everything that they've put out.
Yeah.
So if I was to put a fine point on it, inspiration-wise, the reason, if you want to know why I am the reason I am,
yeah, that is 100% true.
Because NoFX has helped to shape my opinions on sex, on politics, religion.
Yeah.
Not completely. I don't necessarily. It's not like I'm 100%, but as far as acceptance and knowledge of those things, they have opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah.
And they've exposed me and helped me learn a lot about life from a non-conventional point of view.
Absolutely.
So
I don't disagree.
And when you realize those things, and maybe why I always look for those things that don't work, trying to get those things to work, it's probably because of them. Because they are almost they shouldn't have worked.
I would agree, and yet they did. And yet also, the more you listen to NoFX, the more you really sort of appreciate that, like, while everything's funny, it's not all a joke.
No. Yeah, and it's, dude, one of the albums that I brought up, Heavy Petting Zoo, is a dark album.
It's a
Holy
very dark.
Shit.
I remember when that record
how
came
dark
out.
That was.
Yeah, it's a really dark record, and I love it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's on my.
It's a real like if you want to count them off as being like the guys that are jokey or farty or whatever. Like, yes, they are. They joke. They
can be. Yeah.
But to me that's true. That's
but
true
so too are the Descendants.
Yeah.
But like listen to their songs and they're really heavy.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are really like deep and really heavy. NoFX always impressed me with that. Like sometimes it'll be like the whole song is a joke, like a slap in the face, and then there's one line at the end, and you're like, oh.
I was singing the song "Makes Me Sad," and I was like, wait a minute, I kind of want to die. All this, I was like, holy shit,
yeah.
I was like, damn,
yeah.
But it's sung in this way where you're not even thinking of it, and how they just kind of fade out. It's to me, Heavy Petting Zoo is one of those things. If you're feeling a little emo, check them out. If you want to be a little bit weird, So Long, Thanks for All Those Shoes. And if you just want a cool, weird album in general, front to back, White Trash, Two Hoops, and a Bean.
Yeah.
You got everything.
Yeah, you got everything. Right.
So,
and this is among, by the way, guys, if you're not a NoFX fan, like 23 freaking records. So they've got tons of releases.
Over the years. Like,
very prolific.
There's more, and I'm sure that'll change over the years, but those are the three, like, I feel like mainstays. Like, you can kind of pick up anywhere in those years and kind of be like, wow, that doesn't sound anything like this one, and then this one doesn't sound anything like this one. Like, it's cool that a band and that it all resonates with me somehow.
Right.
I think that's the important part.
Yeah, man, we can go on and on about NoFX for sure.
We're gonna. This is actually the end of the 6 a.m. podcast, but this is the start of our
our new podcast.
What's on your turntable? A 6 p.m. podcast.
Whoa. Brought to you by Jeff and Pat.
We do it when the sun goes down.
Guys, thanks for hanging in with us this episode. It was a good one. I really enjoyed that conversation, most especially the turntable today, man.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, it was good. You get me fired up.
We gave our origin stories.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little peek into like what's wrong with us.
Tell us why you are the way you are.
Yeah, and we'll see y'all guys next week.